Cher Ban Ki-moon, cher secrétaire général, vous n'êtes pas en retraite. Nous avons besoin de vous, de vos conseils. Donc on ne peut pas vous lâcher en si bon chemin. Merci également.
Thank you also to my two sisters. I'm really well supported by the President Samia and my sister, the President Sall from Ethiopia, the President of Tanzania. Of course, our two champions, President Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, and the energy. Thank you, all of you, for this meeting. I would like to simply say that adaptation is a priority, an absolute priority. It is the #1 priority of Africa in terms of climate. It is obvious because Africa is the most vulnerable continent. It has been said several times. It is vulnerable to climate change, and we have the least developed countries on the continent. I talk of Senegal, where we need to concentrate on both on the challenges and the fight against poverty. But at the same time, we have to face climate change issues on an annual basis with the non-predictability of climate meteorological aspects. Today, every year, you can go from drought to unbelievable. So these are effects which are felt. I'm not talking about erosion. We have 700 meters of the coastal area. All the villas and the coast are buried every year because the sea sometimes spills over. Sometimes we say that the Atlantic Sea is taking on to 2 kilometers per year. So these are global changes which deserve serious measures and appropriate measures. We are here at the Africa Climate Summit because climate change is having a toll, a clear toll, both on our recent developments as well as on the progress that we want to achieve. That's why we are confronted with dangers, constant dangers which are increasingly more and more serious as a result of extreme weather conditions. When I go towards the Indian Ocean, where I find countries like Mozambique, like Comoros, Madagascar, in terms of tropical temperatures, we can understand we're not talking about a desert in the Sahel area or in Sahara or even in the Kalahari Desert. So it is truly, these are real challenges which Africa is facing at the moment. Now, these effects, you find it regarding the health of the population, on agriculture, sustainable agriculture, but also the lifestyle, and the report is very clear, which confirms that it is a scientific report which doesn't have to be debated. It is very clear that if nothing is done for adaptation, the African which needs development like other parts of the world, and Africa has a very high population, more than 2 billion. They have to develop their economies. So if this development is not supported through adaptation, speedy adaptation, that means we are all going to have a catastrophe. A certain catastrophe in our continent. So mitigation, it's clear, by mitigating we can be able to achieve good results. But I think what we did last year during the Rotterdam Summit on adaptation in Africa, I had presented as the President of the African Union at the time, I presented our plan, financing plan in Africa for adaptation on the continent, given the situation of climate change. It was a program, an acceleration program for adaptation in Africa by what we call triple P, PPPAAA, triple P, triple A, triple AP, just like Anglophones say. So this program gave impressive results, and I want to thank you for the commitment of African Development Bank. It is their commitment of $25 billion, so we have a gap of 12.5 billion in order to go to a higher level within the framework of acceleration. This year in Nairobi, I want to talk about the investment roadmap for Senegal. I'm talking about Africa, but it is a window for Senegal. So this is very clear in our pact for adaptation, and just like he said, we had an experience, a very original experience, its impact on sustainable agriculture. We asked each president with their partners, agricultural partners in a country, and we presented the program. So the compact was presented, and the commitments were made on the basis of concrete projects. I think on adaptation, we can repeat the same activity. What is the program of adaptation for each country, taking into account our NDCs? But I think that with the multilateral system, with adequate funding, of course, because Africa, in brackets, does not, Africa is fighting hard for its own adaptation, but at what price are we doing it? Let's take the case of energy, for example, where we call upon the APPP for the independent producers. Even for solar energy, you take IPP, and yet the private company will be indebted on the market given the commercial conditions. And of course, there is a risk, a real risk, which means that we need to give guarantees.
Donc, le prix de revient devient trop cher. Et ce qui fait que l'Afrique a du mal à accélérer. Mais avec le solaire, on peut multiplier par 10 nos capacités.
With solar energy, we can multiply by 10 our energy capacities if funding is unlocked. To end, because we are pressed for time, I would like to say that Africa should open up to the adaptation market in other regions of the world, like Asia, South Asia, for example, has already made adaptation a very important economic activity, especially in the private sector. With the private sector. So it is high time in Africa the private sector intervene, be it through sustainable energy like IPPs, in clean water production like desalination of seawater, and also reduce risks related to the intervention of the private sector in adaptation projects in Africa. I suggest that in Dubai, Africa should hold a single position about adaptation, and through the voice of our colleague William Ruto, who had the merit to organize this conference, and Africa as a whole will follow that point. We don't want to follow our partners at times have to follow 20,000 narratives, and at one point they face challenges. They don't know which one to follow. But this time we will speak in one voice, and we hope this partnership will make COP28 a great success. I thank you for your attention.